What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Real Sports Science Podcast. My name's David, PhD student at Loughborough University.
And I'm Matt, head strength and conditioning coach within rugby. David, what are we doing here?
Yeah, good question, Matt. Well, we started this podcast to share the highs and the lows of our journey as we start careers as sports science practitioners.
That's right, and we are excited for all of you to be side by side with us through all the mud, sweat, and unpaid volunteer placements.
Yeah, Matt, that sounds personal. But hey, it's not just us. We've got some amazing guests that come onto the podcast as well.
We'll be getting their perspective and learning from their experiences to help us grow in our developing careers and in our current roles.
Yeah, that's right. So hey, if that's up your alley or you just want to come and learn alongside us, we'd love to have you come along.
So whether for the first time or not, welcome to the RSF podcast.
Let's go. Welcome to the next episode. Matt, do you know what episode this actually is? Do you?
Yeah, 5.
5. No, it's episode 5 of series 1. But how many? I think this is our 49th episode, actually. It might even be the big 5.
I was about to say, you could have just said it for my benefit that it was the 50th.
Thing is, though, it might be as well. I should know this.
Yeah.
But yeah, episode...
Carry on, I'll check.
Okay. Episode 5 of series 1 for sure. Wintering.
Oh, it's 51, David.
No way.
It's fine.
Are you sure?
51 or 52?
Well, 52 is good because that's a whole year. So.
But we don't count 2 of them because they were a bit bad. So it's 50 technically.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, no pressure then. I won't deliver on the big one, big 5-0.
But we have, exactly, episode 5 of our series Wintering. And we have our third guest on. Quick introduction. Bachelor's Sports Science. I'm reading this straight off the page, so I didn't memorize this. And you can fact check it as well. Sports Science at Bath University. Masters of S&C at St. Mary's, which is cool. I did some RA, like research stuff down there.
Okay.
It's really nice.
Yeah, for strength and conditioning and just sports science in general.
Well, they have that whole gym there.
Yeah. I mean,
just for S&C.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was there when you were there.
I did my UK CSA there. SCA.
What was that?
UK SCA there.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Did
mate.
you pass it by
It just brought back PTSD of how the whole testing stage went, and it just brought back bad memories.
UKSFU. So
Yeah.
Anyways.
The one that everyone needs but doesn't need.
And then after that, you have a smattering of S&C jobs. So you did a placement at Leicester Tigers, which I'm sure we'll get into placements. Sore topic for Matt at the minute. And then you work for Team Bath. Is that rugby? I wrote down rugby, but I actually don't know.
So I guess we'll get into this, I imagine. But so I did so when I was at Millfield, which we'll get onto, I did some voluntary work at Bath Rugby, the Premiership team.
Right,
but I also, in my final year of my degree, my bachelor's at Bath, I then did some volunteering S&C at Team Bath, which is obviously the brand of almost like Loughborough Sport equivalent.
Oh, okay. So Team Bath is Bath Uni.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you also worked at Bath Rugby.
I worked as it's more like as part of my role within the school. I was
Millfield.
A voluntary, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So so you went S&C. This is a long intro. I'm getting distracted every time. I'm like asking a question.
Yeah. It's all good.
Because you did obviously rugby, and then you worked as an athletic development coach.
Yeah.
So you had a break, and that's probably similar to what Matt's doing at the minute. And then from there, Worcester Warriors. Did I say that right?
Yeah. Again, that was a short and sweet sort of endeavor, but yeah, it was definitely
before coming up to Loughborough, worked as a graduate S&C coach, and then now finally working as an S&C coach in the NFL Academy, which you've been doing for a year and a half.
Yeah,
started the summer of last summer of 2022.
Yeah.
Right?
August 2022 when it first moved up here from North London. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So after 5 minutes, that is our guest, Jack Oaten. I haven't even said your name yet.
It's okay. It's just the fact that someone's reading stuff about me off a bit of paper that makes me a bit freaked out in a good way. I never thought this would ever happen. So.
First time for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, Matt.
Sorry, I got a couple questions leading on to that. So, Worcester Warriors, were you there when it went down?
No, I was. So essentially, I was in the process of applying for a job there anyway. It's part of their academy role, and then during the application process, I managed to stay in comms with the head of performance there, and he very kindly offered me an opportunity to come up as a part-time sort of casual contract. So I managed to get some experience across both the academy and the senior men's team. And then that late July of that summer, that's when I then moved across to Loughborough. And then unfortunately, it wasn't too long after that it started to go downhill for them. And then
because I think that happened when we already started the podcast, Matt. Didn't it? Because I remember talking about it on the podcast. But I guess it probably was going downhill before then.
Yeah. It went down, and then it was all right, and then it went down again. They had a bit of a period where they were like, maybe we could carry on, but it was just no chance. Because I know a couple of mates that work there, and as well the uni team. Imagine this: your university team. I think they're like Midland. Their first team were like Midlands 2 or something. Because I went to University of Worcester, and we played at like just the rugby club next door. Next thing you know, now the first team are playing at Sixway Stadium, and they're not like amazing level.
Are they like now? They are. The university teams play there. That's unreal.
Yeah.
Sick for them.
Yeah. I think and again, we're probably going to this with us with our opportunity to go down to Tottenham.
Yeah.
Like,
just the I don't care if it's not full. Like, just going there for the first time would be unbelievable.
And just being under the lights and having the markings all laid out, proper NFL style, the post up, it was a really, really special night.
Oh, I bet. And we'll definitely get on to that. Before we do that, first, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks.
I really appreciate it. We were chatting, finished the intro finally, 50 minutes in. Jack Oaten. Been talking to him for 50 minutes. Before we came on, we were just chatting quick, and I said it's really cool for this series because we've had you as being football, which is totally different, especially I think it's very rare to probably get that in the UK. And we've had, athletics coach Kate, and then last week someone in the military. So it's very cool to have like the totally 3 different aspects. So I think it's really, really cool. It'd be cool to just hear about your journey. Journey through school. Did you always know you were going to want to be kind of an S&C coach? Did it come from playing sports? Did you do that? Yeah, just a little bit of how'd you get to where you are now?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it short. As you said, like there probably people know enough about me from that intro before. But I was always a sports fanatic as a kid. Yeah. Rugby, swimming, and tennis were sort of my main 3 sports growing up. It got to a point where rugby really became my passion and something that I really enjoyed, and I have been playing it since I guess at the age of 6 potentially. Oh, wow. You have that classic every S&C coach is a failed athlete sort of storyline. I definitely probably fall into that category in terms of like I never was close to being an elite athlete in any way, shape, or form, but I always fancied myself as having a shot. So
I was going to say, Matt, were you ever an athlete?
Living the dream through the athletes every day of the week.
It. Yeah.
They say that in hockey as well. Those who can't coach.
We won.
We won. Hey, you get a ring. All I'm saying, if you're on the team, if you're an S&C coach, you get a ring. So it counts.
Yeah. But I anything that I could do to do with sport in an academic sense, I would try and do. So A levels, obviously, really oriented myself around physical activity, PE, social sciences, biological sciences around that. And then got the opportunity to study my bachelor's of sports science at Bath Uni. And then 2 years into that, then obviously my third year was a placement. So that was my first real professional experience within sports science realm. And that was at Leicester Tigers. Okay. So that was for the 2018-19 season. Yeah. And that was, as I said, it was really my first taste. And I kind of actually went in as a sports scientist, like more purely. So like working with GPS, data visualization, and analytics, that sort of stuff, which was cool. Yeah. I think for me, it was probably that I craved that more athlete facing role and that sort of in the trenches type role, I guess, of being in the gym environment and coaching them day to day. So after that year, I decided the strength and conditioning was probably better suited to me. That's where I, as we said before, I kind of volunteered my time during my final year studies at Bath Uni, worked across all sorts of different things, netball, taekwondo, the TAS program. Oh, wow. And then eventually, finally, thankfully, managed to land a graduate role at Millfield. Yeah. I always cite, and I've said this before, like I think probably most of my development has come in those 2 years at Millfield.
Okay.
I think just based on the hours I was coaching, but also the structured development and support I got from my line manager there and the staff, and just the general philosophy towards athletic development at Millfield, it really helped me like excel.
Yeah.
And then that then came to a close. My contract as part of the graduate program there, it's usually just a year now, but I was lucky enough to stay on for 2. So after that second year, I then obviously had to move on to think about moving on. So what do I want to do from now? And this opportunity came up, and to work in contact sports, so kind of satisfies that sort of rugby element and the physicality of sport. And I love preparing athletes for being physical.
Yeah.
But to do it in such an exciting program, in quite a niche sport within the UK, and something that's up and coming, and to be NFL affiliated as well, and the I guess the opportunities that come with that, I just couldn't pass it up. And then I just somehow found my way into it, and it's been a pretty cool ride ever since, to be honest.
What the Millfield ones? What was your role there that made it different, or that made it that you got the most out of that?
Yeah.
Like the role specifically, because I'm guessing that wasn't rugby per se, or performance sports, probably all over the place a little bit.
Yeah, no, exactly that. So I did do the rugby's program.
Yeah.
So again, I think the what was really well done there was my strengths were met in terms of I wanted to work within rugby or contact based sports. I knew that going forward, that's what I wanted to do. But what they did a really good job of was almost exposing you to things you probably hadn't done before, or the type of sports I was working with. So I was working with rugby, athletics, netball, a little bit less than netball, actually, more like fencing, monopathlon, sailing.
That's crazy.
Like golf.
Yeah.
So the variety of sports, I know that generally at that age, sport specificity we can get, it's a whole other podcast, but generally the considerations of the type of athlete that play different sports.
Yeah.
So in terms of the interpersonal thing.
Yeah.
But also that there are some basic demands of each sport which would require some different approaches.
Yeah.
But also just the sheer volume of coaching you do.
Okay.
So you'd be coaching quite a lot in the week.
Just
so
the pure hours that you're doing.
I think so. So just generally the coaching, and I can't remember where I've heard it, I always would credit it, but you kind of get this, you can't learn how to coach. Like, so if you're trying to ride a bike or learn how to ride a bike, you wouldn't do that by attending the weekend seminar. You do it by going out and riding the bike, falling off, getting yourself back on it and getting better at it.
Yeah.
And I feel like coaching is the same thing. You can't learn how to coach by sitting at a UKCA conference. I might get absolutely blazed for that. But it's actually about applying it and actually about being in the environment and actually coaching.
And those things obviously have a place.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Like you said, like your job is practical. So eventually you need to do it.
Oh, yeah.
So you're good. I think Matt, we were talking to Jamie Lowry, and he said because he works, what's the school he works at right now?
Well, I just went to Wellington. We beat them in the rugby.
and he said the same thing. He's like, this job is teaching me kind of the softer skills of coaching, because it is not as focused as probably you are now in one area, and you get so many athletes or so many people from different backgrounds needing different things, and at that age where there's like, you can't just tell them to do something and then they're going to do it. So
I think it's the same way that we talk about holistic development for an athlete. It's almost holistic development for me, being exposed to so many different sports, so many different, and like you said, I was coaching guys and girls from 13 to 18.
Yeah.
So again, you have the whole LTAD type, considerations and challenges and stuff. So it really was quite a well-rounded experience for me, and it's helped me excel in this role, I believe.
Matt, would you agree, like, when with your role kind of similar to what Jack was saying?
Yeah, so I was just about to say, Jack, so like I'm head of athletic development at Tunbridge School, and they haven't had a program there before. So whilst I'm also trying to create a program, it's like I always enjoyed the practical side of S&C instead of the theory. So I'm trying to do the theory part of this job, but then I'm also enjoying the practical part, which is essentially, as you said, working with so many different sports. Say you work within an academy or you're in an elite setup with a team, they want to be there because they're professional athletes. You don't have to drag them or try to find different ways to motivate them, as well as you don't have to find like different ways to programming their niche sort of needs in their sport. So it's like quite difficult, but it's also helping your coaching skills, because the way you chat to one kid who's sailing will be different to how you're going to chat to one rugby lad who's ready to get, become a prop for the next season for the under 18s, transferring from under 16s. So it's very, very interesting.
Down to that point, it was. I think another thing that helps within those school-based situations is the size of the group as well.
Right.
So at least at Millfield, I don't know how it is at Tunbridge, but like we had. I don't know what it's like now. It's been a few years since I've been there, but we had a system by which upper sixth and lower sixth students would be able to come in on one-to-one or small group sessions throughout the day. And then from year 11 down, they would be only allowed to attend sort of preschool, lunchtime or after school sessions. So throughout the day, you're suddenly working with 30 year 9 kids, and your coaching style has to flex to be able to get the outcome you're wanting for those year 9s, which is probably more task focused. You're more like, right, we've got a job to do. It's 30 kids.
Yeah.
We've got to get this done. Let's try and make it as fun as possible. Blah blah blah. But then if you're working with, say, 2 rugby lads, both academy, they're both on the sort of grasp of getting an academy contract at the end of their 2 years, say a senior academy contract. You're probably far more relational. You probably you have the time to have these conversations. You have the time to dig a little deeper. So I think I completely agree. It's a wild west, but it's you do become better after it for sure.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like as you said, those year 9s. No. It's just those, as you said, those younger years, trying to get them, and there's never like 2 of them. There's always like 40, 30, and you're trying to make it fun, but also try to cover it. So you might have 10 little bit of athletic development sort of goals that you want to do with them. But if you get 3 done, then you're like, okay, thank you. But with, as you said, like a rugby boy or someone who's doing, say, trying to do 400 meters the best he can, trying to train for that for the athletic season, you can really just like, you're sort of there to motivate and keep them on track. You don't have to just keep them entertained almost.
100%.
So you mentioned placements, and Matt and I have talked a lot, and S&C, it just seems like you have to do volunteer work. And I don't know if that's always been the case, or just because just sports science in general is just such a saturated field. Like I found when I was, when I finished my master's and I was applying for jobs that needed a master's, people with a PhD were applying for it. So I was applying to jobs that just needed bachelors. So like you always had to go one step down. It's just such a saturated thing.
Yeah.
And you said you volunteered Bath Rugby, or that was part of when you worked at Millfield School, and then you had the placement with Leicester Tigers as well. I'm sure you've done countless hours of volunteer work to get where you are now. But I guess now being kind of on the other side of it, like you have a full-time role in S&C now. How do you view that time as being kind of a placement, not getting paid, needing to do kind of stuff on top of your full-time work?
Yeah.
How do you view that now when you look back at it? Do you view it like positively or negatively? How do you view it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think ultimately, I view it positively,
right?
And I think people always say like, "Oh, I've been really lucky," but ultimately, I think that there has been an element of luck in it. In terms of the placement I had at Leicester Tigers, for example, the group of practitioners I went in and worked with, were great, were amazing. They were great at not only wanting to actively develop me. And help me almost figure out in that sort of very green, very raw sort of uni student, like what I actually wanted to do in my life.
Yeah.
But they were very good at managing time as well. Obviously, elite rugby seasons are incredibly demanding. So like trying to manage your time there, they were absolutely brilliant at. And also that sort of the continued professional development, the CPD opportunities, the mentorship opportunities they give you, the visits to other clubs and organizations, the networking, all that sort of stuff. So I think ultimately, in an ideal world, you would like to be remunerated for the investment of time you're putting in.
Yeah.
But like you say, it's a saturated industry. I'm not going to get political. I'm in no sort of status or position to have my voice or my words actually mean anything at all anyway. But like, I guess for me personally, I viewed that as a positive experience ultimately because I think maybe the way I approached it, like, I think sometimes if you're approaching it as, oh God, like I've got to do all these hours before I can get a job, it's probably going to come, the likelihood of probably getting a job at the end of it is probably going to be lower in the sense that you've not seen it as an opportunity to network, to almost guarantee yourself, I guess, a role at the end of it.
Right. Or just get as much out of it as possible.
Exactly, right. So me going, hopefully I like to think that I've been quite proactive with first getting that placement, but also during that year, during my final year of university, the networking that I did during my time at Millfield with other practitioners and organisations and stuff, keeping ties with people that I worked with in the past. Like it all pays dividends in the end.
Yeah.
I know I probably didn't answer the question, but
oh, definitely. I guess like off the back of that, like, what was I going to say? I started talking and it just vanished.
No, it's okay.
What do you think? Do you think you'd be the same S&C coach now than if all of those placements would have been paid, or do you think there's some element of that, like because it's not paid, you're kind of like, I need to get as much out of this as possible? Maybe it develops because it's not paid. I don't know, some other. It always builds character. Or some sort of, like, I don't know, or I don't know. Am I reaching?
No, I don't know. I think it always, if you answer that question, whether those roles are paid or not, I don't think would have made much of a difference in how I would have approached my sort of day to day and what I wanted to get out of them.
Right.
So ultimately, I don't think it would have made me a different S&C coach today. I'd like to think that regardless if it was paid or not, I'd still put in the same level of effort, same level of
just maybe a bit more tired.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, exactly. As I say, 26 going on 86. Bags into my eyes. All sorts. But.
Matt, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't know. I feel like because like I had placements whilst I was at Loughborough and at Worcester. And I don't know, it made me realise what I wanted to do, because I'm like, look, I'm not getting paid. I could easily go do this and get paid, but then putting like countless hours in, I was like, actually, you know what, even though I'm not getting paid, I'm still thoroughly enjoying it. When you do get paid, it's not, all my mates did business, so they're all in London, earning big bucks, and I could just do that, but then I thought, actually, I'm not getting paid here, but I'm still enjoying myself. So then I thought, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do, and pay wasn't never the factor for me. I'd enjoy programming, I enjoy working with so many people, so I feel like if it was paid, maybe it wouldn't have changed my coaching, but the gratification from it maybe enhance that through the unpaid placement.
No, I totally agree. I think that ultimately, because I get such a buzz of like you said, working with athletes every day, almost like an altruistic nature of like seeing them achieve their potential and achieve what they want to achieve. That's what makes me happy. That's why I've done those hours of volunteer. So call me silly, call me stupid, but to me, money's not really much of a consideration if what you're doing is making you happy and I don't want to go like spiritual, turning this podcast into some sort of spiritual sort of.
We go wherever the guests go.
But for me, like the of course you need to make enough to have a life and be comfortable. But if you're especially in those early years, if you're in a position where you're progressing, you're developing, you're making good relationships with people who could put you in opportunities in the future, and you're enjoying the role, then I think that for me anyway, the money wasn't such a bad thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's never going to be stress free. Do you know what I mean? Whatever job you go through. So it's like, you got to enjoy that part of it. You got to expect that some parts are going to be bad. Like I remember I was out in New Zealand and I was like, this is bloody amazing. Like I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Then a couple losses down the road and everyone's sort of not panicking, but like it's starting like, okay, look, something's wrong, let's find out what's wrong. So everyone's just a bit on eggshells, we're just working a lot harder, and I thought, oh geez, we got a long day tomorrow, waking up at 5. But then after that day, you're like, oh, actually, this is why I do it. That was lovely, like putting in those hard yards. No job's going to be stressful.
I guess it's kind of nice as well because there's no I haven't done a placement like an S&C placement, so maybe this is wrong, but there's no, I guess, coming out of graduating master's or bachelor's, or you're doing your placement, there's no there's less expectation on you as a coach to be perfect because you're not getting paid.
Right.
Or you have a full-time job, so if you get something wrong and for some reason you get let go of your unpaid role, like it's not like you're out of a job now. Obviously that's not ideal.
No.
You don't want to have that happen, but there's not like that pressure on you to need to know everything right. It's almost kind of like a soft start into it, and you can, I guess, like you said, really focus on meeting people, networking, taking advantage of the CPD opportunities. Obviously there's somebody above you, so you get to chat and hang out with probably people who are above where you're at. So I guess that's kind of a positive of not being paid.
Yeah,
I suppose.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
Matt, do you have anything to add to that? No.
Nice.
Nothing. Nice. Yeah, I think. Well, I guess Jamie was the other S&C coach, but he works in a school. So you're the first one who's come through placement school and now has a full time kind of in an academy role like you do now. And transition academy. Didn't even need to do that.
Smooth as butter. Like
so it. You work in the NFL academy now.
Yeah.
And so that was in London. It started in 2019.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So NFL academy, and then in 2022 it moved up to Loughborough.
Sure.
And that's when you started, right?
Yeah.
So just tell us a little bit about that, like the progression, like kind of what's exciting about it, like what drew you to this specifically, other than it obviously being able to have Loughborough be here and also the NFL and the connections with that. Like what's exciting about it? Like where do you see it going?
Yeah. Multi-part. I'll try and take it one at a time.
That was several questions.
Several questions in one. It's okay.
I love doing that.
Yeah, it's fun. So I guess, heading into the role, so like you said, I got recruited and started in mid-August of 2022. At that time, it really had literally just moved up.
Yeah.
So the foundations of its Loughborough life hadn't really been laid yet.
Right.
So what was really exciting first and foremost was actually having an opportunity to help or contribute towards the establishment of that program. So heading in, it was literally myself, our head of performance, another physiotherapist, and a part-time nutritionist, just 4 of us.
That's sweet.
So it was tough work.
Yeah.
It was tricky. We had then had a PA, performance analysis placement, come in and help us with a few things, but ultimately it was quite quick and dirty as it had to be, to try and get things up and running and try and get the system going and trying to form new relationships with new stakeholders, most notably the technical coaches and the players that were coming up, some of which had obviously been in the program when it was down in London. So moving up in that transition period was obviously quite tough for quite a few of them. So establishing sort of our program as a holistic performance support team, that was really cool. And we're still building it now. You just say like we're only a year and 4 or 5 months into this journey up in Loughborough, so we're still by no means a finished product. So I think the most exciting thing of this program for me personally is almost the opportunity it's giving to kids outside of the US and young men outside the US to ultimately try and change their lives, because a lot of them are coming from all over the world. So we have I think this year it's 13 different countries of athlete coming into the academy. We're in the academy currently. And some of them, unfortunately, coming from quite impoverished backgrounds or quite harsh backgrounds. This is an opportunity they've been given ultimately to change the course of their lives. And we have an opportunity now to not only develop them athletically and give them an opportunity to go on to college football, which then ultimately might lead on to the NFL, which is obviously ultimately our end goal. Yeah. But also there's a huge emphasis on character development and education within our program. So they are student athletes. So developing them as young men as well is they're probably the two sort of key pillars of our program, is both the athletic development but also the personal development too. Yeah.
And you had that chance of, you didn't come in the program it was already there, but it was first time coming here.
Sure.
So we're like, what are those foundations? How do we integrate what they had down in London?
Yeah.
How do we use some of that? Some of the things probably maybe we want to move away from, or we can change and improve on. So that's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. And then obviously, like I said, the glitter and the bright, shiny sort of trophies along with it, in terms of having opportunities to travel out to the US, being able to play down in big stadiums and play international teams, and to be part of the group when we beat our first American opposition in sort of the academy's history, which is a big stepping stones. The quality, the gap of quality between non-US and US based or North American based for football is still quite large. So the fact we've shown the world that we can compete with these American schools and come out on top, that's probably turned more heads to us from a recruitment perspective, which only then, like I said, completes that loop of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. And you mentioned briefly like football, American football.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, we have to. I have to call football soccer now.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were
because we're completely within the performance support team. At least we've got a lot of American technical coaches, but within the performance support team, we're all English.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about football, it's just like just grit your teeth. So no, I meant soccer. Like,
yeah.
Did you watch the football the weekend? Oh no, soccer. Oh, the Premier League. Yeah.
Yeah, it's faster to say soccer than American football.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because American football is just a mouthful, and you say it 28 times a day. And
yeah, I bet.
Yeah,
I bet. What's it like trying to grow football in a soccer and rugby?
Yeah.
It's nice being able to say soccer again. In a country that's obviously it's either football, real football, or rugby. Like how has it been trying to get that name out there of this isn't just a stateside sport or a North American sport. This is something that we're building here.
Yeah.
How's that been?
Well, it ultimately it doesn't come down to me. My role is probably doesn't touch on that side so much. We've got a lot of really good people way up above in terms of the NFL and the grassroots program that are doing a great job in trying to grow the game from very young ages and trying to almost establish, as you would, a similar soccer or a rugby academy, trying to get more boys and girls playing the flag football, any form of American football from an early age and trying to expose them to the sport.
Because I guess that's the thing, like it needs to start at the grassroots. Because like you said, the level that the States is at to here, it's not, I mean, sure, they have unbelievable places and gyms and coaches and all like facilities as well, but they've been throwing a football ever since they were able to throw anything.
Yeah.
Right. Like they've been doing, or it's like Canada and ice hockey. Like I've been skating ever since I could walk.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no substitute for that.
For sure.
Like you can have the sickest gym, but someone who's been doing it for 20 years is going to beat you. Yeah. And did you go over and play IMG in Florida last year?
No. So unfortunately, not. So our first year they came here.
Okay.
We played them down in London, and then
And how'd that go?
We unfortunately lost that one. That was our first game that was almost like our first game as a Loughborough.
That's an opponent to play.
Yeah, exactly right. And So talk about baptism by fire. Like, it was brutal, but we bounced back from that pretty well that season. But then we have a really good working relationship with the guys at IMG from I guess like a practitioner point of view.
Oh, cool.
So myself and a few of the other guys and in the department, we actually were really lucky to go over there in March this year for a CPD week of learning and exchanging sort of ideas and stuff.
Wow.
And it was so cool. It was my first time in the States as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a place to go to.
Well, it wasn't bad. Yeah.
Is it in Fort Lauderdale or just outside?
No, it's so it's just south of Tampa. It's in a place called oh my God, I've literally just lost it.
Oh, it's south of Tampa.
It's now south of Tampa.
Oh
my God.
It's
Bradenton.
Oh, okay.
That's the place. So
Bradenton.
So and then even just going from the airport to there was a couple the traffic in America. Firstly, is really bad.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's when you have those journeys that you realize how big a country it is.
Yeah.
And you talk about going from like Bradenton, which is like southwest Florida, up to Gainesville, which is like north, and it's like 10-hour drive.
Yeah.
And you're like,
and you're in the same state.
And you're not even a smidge away.
Yeah. My last year playing hockey before my undergrad, I was playing in Texas. And our closest road game, which was still in Texas, was 9 hours away, and our furthest away was 17 hours in Missouri.
Yeah,
and I remember you would be driving home, and we'd be like, "Oh yeah, we made it! Like we're in Texas," and you'd still have 11 hours to drive.
No.
And Texas, I mean, it's just different, isn't it?
Yeah.
But speaking of opportunities. Like going to IMG and stuff this year, you had a game at the Spurs Stadium.
Yeah.
You briefly mentioned on it. Just talk to us about that, like how sick that was for you, but also, being able to go down there with the guys and for them as well.
Yeah. Well, I think the first and foremost, we were so lucky to do it. I think as now Tottenham Hotspur Stadium has a really good relationship with the NFL and now hosts 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 NFL games in London every year.
Okay.
It just seemed to work it just seemed to align perfectly that we could have a game there too between the sort of Sunday to Sunday turnaround of the 2 NFL games. Which again, got to credit the people behind the scenes of trying to make that happen, because it's probably quite a big logistical, to even have the stadium functioning on a night when it probably shouldn't be, probably costs a lot. It probably requires a lot of sacrifice from a lot of people. So really grateful to everyone who made that happen, because it's probably, I have to say, it's probably you get little moments certainly in a journey of where you are. I think that's probably the one of the highlights for me right now at the moment of being, the whole global experience has been a highlight in terms of helping guys, but I think there's like one particular moment that night is probably one of them. Having just come off the back of winning IMG here in Loughborough on that Friday.
Yeah, I remember that.
We had a 3-day turnaround.
Yeah.
So Saturday, Sunday, Monday on the bus.
Which
Tuesday
for football is unheard of.
Right. And we actually practiced on the Saturday and Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, Sunday and Monday. Oh, no, Saturday, Sunday, sorry. Yeah, Saturday and Sunday. So, and the Monday. So you talk about preparation. So we went down. We were playing a team from New York State, Erasmus Hall, who have been crowned probably state champions maybe 4 or 5 times now. Came in, and I think just being in the locker room, as you call it, changing room, I call it. Matt probably calls it changing room, but locker room again. Trying to adopt all the semantics, but just being in there, like seeing all the NFL like decor and just more again. To bring it back to this, but just the experience of the guys to experience almost like an NFL style game day, like being in the same locker room as these NFL players will be in the following Sunday.
That's cool.
Having their own seats, and they're all NFL embroidered seats. It has the name, it has the name and the number of the guy who's probably coming in on a Sunday, who's being paid multi-million pounds, dollars. So I think this general experience of that was in itself enough, but then the performance was so cool. Yeah, we played so well. They really didn't even have a shot. Like they didn't really fire a shot. We were just so clinical. And then ultimately at the end of that game, we had 7 or 8 guys offered D1 scholarships on the spot by a scout who was on the sideline. So you talk about a great night. We probably, because we get given targets each year about how many guys you want to see transition to D1 football. So you can see how happy we were in terms of we're probably about 3/4 of the way there already. It's not even sort of November, but the actual the seeing the lights, the atmosphere, the experience of all was for me personally, and also the team was just so cool.
Yeah, unbelievable.
I was just wondering, because obviously rugby and American football pretty similar, just contact sports in that sense, but when you get down to the nitty-gritty, the sort of needs analysis, there's so many different positions that require so much more specific training in American football compared to rugby, because at the end of the day, rugby, you can change up 1 or 2 exercises for, like, say, a lock and then, a flanker, or backs to forwards, but there's not that much change there. So then how did you manage to secure a role being in the NFL? Like, do you have like prior American football knowledge, or did you have to learn some of that stuff? How did you prepare?
That's a great question. I think I was, again, lucky enough to have a little bit of background in the sport. So I was able to utilize that in the sort of the interview process and show them that I had almost like an implicit understanding of some of the sort of key demands. I actually remember in part of my interview that one of the tasks was to almost do some sort of needs analysis task on a wide receiver. So I think I was able to sort of bleed through like my knowledge and my understanding in that. But I think as well, what also, again, talk about luck, but also what helped me in that situation was the academy were actively trying to seek individuals from other sports and other domains, because there's almost that concept of bringing together people with very different experiences and very different skill sets and stuff. It can create a very rich and very progressive IDT, because you're all coming together with very, very different sort of ingredients to bring to this sort of dish you're trying to create, as it were. So I think that I guess the contact sport experience, having known people at the university and having a network here, as well as having some knowledge and understanding of the game, I think the 3 of those, that trifecta, probably like helped me a lot in terms of, I guess, getting the role, but also then coming into that role. I was really hot on trying to, even before I started, in that sort of month or so before I started, trying to read up as much as I could, I've got a few friends who are also S&C coaches who are completely NFL mad and reg football mad. So they were really, really helpful in sort of upskilling me in some of the I guess more S&C specific stuff as well as the sort of the sport related stuff, such as the rules and all that sort of thing. It's quite I wouldn't say that I'm not an expert in any way, by any means, but I like to think that I can watch a game and
do you know all the ref signals yet for all the flags?
Yeah, I think that's
the most important thing.
Yeah.
He's purchased 10 packs of yellow flags.
He's just out on the rugby pitch, just practice throwing him.
That's the one.
Yeah.
You get a flag. You get a flag.
Yeah, that's funny. Matt, did you have something? Yeah, go
ahead. Sorry, just quickly. I was going to ask. So, what would be like the top 10 3?
The top 10 3.
The top 3 things.
Top 10 3 things.
The top 3 things. I know. I thought I'd go 10, but then bring it down to 3. What would be the top 3 things that you would say are the biggest differences that you had to grasp from transitioning to a new sport that you haven't worked with before? Because I understand, obviously, being at Millfield, it's a pretty good skill to have where you've been with sports that you've never worked with, so you can, take all the different specificities you've had to work with in the past for those sports. So what were the top 3 things?
Good question. I think first and foremost, about integrating into American football specifically, was the intimate nature of it. So I think if you're talking about typical team sports in the UK, hockey, football, rugby, they are obviously stoppages, but it's far more a continuous sport, specifically things like hockey and football, right? So coming into a sport where it is very much an output-based game in the sense that you have to really, you have to go super maximal efforts, like for 5 to upwards of sort of 15, 20 seconds, depending on sort of the worst case scenario of a play, followed then by some passive rest, and then go again. So I think some of the considerations you might have around how you prepare guys to be able to tolerate that work, not only increase the ceiling from the actual outputs, but also reduce the drop off in terms of fatigue between plays or between drives and between series and that sort of stuff. I guess is probably number one. I think number 2, ultimately, it's American sport. We've now changed this year where we've got American staff coming in, and they've brought with them obviously a culture of American sport, which I think is brilliant, because ultimately we're trying to prepare them for colleges. So if we're wanting to prepare them for an American environment, we need to have some form of American environment here. It just makes sense. So I think probably just nothing more than just like how they operate, the values they might have, what they hang the hat on from a training perspective. Those sorts of things, I guess, were just things you just had to sort of get used to, and perhaps were slightly different from traditional UK sports.
Even just like they've been over there, because I know a few athletes have conversations with athletes who've gone over to D1 and it just hasn't worked out.
Right.
And then they come back.
Yeah.
Because, like going over to a new country to live is one thing, going over there to do uni another, and then third to do a sport. And then you're doing the sport that the whole nation lives and breathes, like day and night. Like that would be tough. So like even having someone who's been there, who's, someone's gets a D1 scholarship or whatever is going over their plate to be able to be like, this is what it's like.
Yeah.
And like you said, just kind of prepare them.
Well, yeah. And I think the other benefit of having the American staff in has been that, because like you said, they've been there, they know the system. Lots of them are ex-NFL players or ex-NFL coaches.
Very cool.
We've been so
wow,
cool.
That's incredible.
So it's really, we've really stepped that up in terms of the caliber of expertise that the guys have access to. But not only that, because they've been through the entire system from college to NFL, they know the ins and outs. They know some of the tips and tricks. They have the network. So that's just another sort of string to bow in terms of like the quality of this program, because now we have the people who can get you your foot in the door and sort of that inside track to getting to some pretty decent colleges, which we've managed to send a few guys to and continue to do so. So like, yeah, it's been a great addition to have them in.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So what would you say before we move on to what we actually want to talk about? What would you say is the most exciting thing about the academy right now? The one thing that if somebody asks you, like, what's so great about the academy? What's the most exciting thing? I cannot wait to get to work because of this.
So it's difficult to pick one. That's the reason why I'm
the NFL staff.
I got like this hybrid sort of Loughborough NFL stash new in like 2 weeks ago. So it looks good. Yeah, it still has that new clothes smell. It's
Here come the big timers.
There we go. No, that's definitely a plus. We love a bit of stash. But I think it's going to sound like a cop-out answer, I'm pretty sure. But for me, it's almost because we're such a young program, it's the excitement of not really knowing like the heights that we could get to.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think the goal that we're all working for is to get as many guys through college as possible, but ultimately we want to try and get our first NFL alumni into the NFL.
Yeah.
And it's obviously that's the outcome, and you have your process goals along the way. And obviously we have things like recruitment of staff, of coaches, playing American teams, opportunities for us as staff to go and develop ourselves by going out to the States and having those relationships and stuff. So to boil it down to one thing is really difficult, but yeah, I think
that's a good point though. Like it's a clean slate.
Yeah,
and maybe if it's it's a program that they've tried it and it doesn't work, and now you're trying it again. And it's like, well, we've already tried it. But for the academy here, it's like, well, these are our goals. It's like, well, why not?
Yeah.
Like why can't we do it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we haven't had a track record of doing it, but we've never tried.
Yeah.
And so that is really cool. Yeah.
But no, yeah, incredibly exciting. I think you could sort of say that sort of perfect model answer of, oh, everything's exciting sort of thing. But I think in particular, it's sort of we're all aligned in what we want to do.
Yeah.
And both staff, physical, nutrition, physio, technical, everyone is, I believe, especially this year, is very much together and aligned on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just coming to work every day, knowing, hopefully, that I like to think so, that we're making them better and we're giving them one step closer to the goal of what their next step might be, whether it's D2 football, whether it's D3 football, ultimately it might be D1 football, and then whatever, transpires out of that, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Really cool. Transitioning into this, which we'll be talking about NFL Academy anyways, and maybe past jobs as well. Is this idea of wintering, which we've talked now, this is the 5th episode on, or off-season training, because obviously wintering only makes sense if either you don't do an official sport, and you're just training in the winter, which I guess is one thing, or the idea of off-season training.
Yeah.
Matt, do you want to just kind of intro that topic and kind of get us going for that, like what we talked about, and then lead us into it?
Yeah, so far we David and I spoke about wintering as a term where people spend normally it falls over winter, hence the name, but it's a period of off season where you can either recoup, like recover, get all the little niggles in your shoulder or stuff sorted out, or you can use that time to get bigger, stronger, quicker for whatever sport you've got. And through Kate, we saw that the off season can be used in different ways. Like say it could be a short off season. We saw how she spoke about how there was like the short-term benefits as well as the long-term benefits, because training for the Olympics. And then recently we spoke to Julian in the army, and he basically said they didn't have an off season because you got to deal with they just train how they always train. There's not much variation. It's just head down, and whatever the conditions there are, we'll go out and do the same thing. So I just wanted to see what it was like, what off-season or wintering means to you in your current role.
Yeah, I think similar to the other guests, it will differ on the year. I think, say, if I'm going to take last year's example, we had guys who, after our last game in April, right? So April is going to like spring, isn't it? So we had some guys who had been selected by the program to go across to the States for a camp to basically, for loads of different mega camps. We have like 500 plus athletes there, and it's kind of like a meat market almost, isn't it? It's like you have numbers on your shirt and they just pick you out and I'll see you do a drill.
Yeah.
So they would tour around. They went around Georgia on this particular tour. So again, that's already one consideration, because these guys don't necessarily get the off season, because as soon as they've done that camp, they're probably back for exams. As soon as they've done their exams, they're probably going to be back in for the following preseason. So how you deal with them will be different to the guys who weren't selected on camp per se. And then literally from that April game until July 31st, there's no football games per se. They'll still be training on, but ultimately, like you said, your aims can change. But if we're going to go pure off season where they don't have any football at all and they're just home, the guys will probably get about 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks, yeah, usually. This year coming up, it might be a little shorter because we're hopefully planning some things in that summer period. So, that's generally how it will work with us.
Yeah.
I don't know what details we get into, but I guess from my perspective, we don't see them. The guys, like I said, international program, a lot of them will fly home.
Yeah.
A lot of guys who are domestic will go off to their homes in other cities around the country. So my access to them and the team's access to them is basically nil from a person to first person interaction.
But you'll set their program,
of course,
for that time.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know what the other guests spoke about. I have to go listen back, but I think the art of any good off season is, I assume it's probably the relationships you build up into it, but also the methods you can use within that off season to sort of maintain adherence or ensure that the guys are trying to do the work you set to the highest quality possible. Yeah. Ultimately, like Matt said there, one of the pros of an off season is that you get to recoup and refresh and recover. And the guys, especially after a heavy season, they need it. So that we're not coming back in day one preseason, they're already in a state of slight overreaching. They're already starting to teeter anyway. Like, we want them to come back almost fresh, ready to go.
Yeah. Well, talk to us about the off season, especially in this academy, because like the NFL or kind of major league sports will have a season, like it's very defined.
Yeah.
I guess rugby is a weird one because rugby does its own thing, and I have no idea how they do it, and I don't know if anyone does. But like the NHL or NFL, it's very clear: off season, preseason, regular season, playoffs, and you just repeat that.
Yeah.
And it's, the only difference is when your season ends because of how far you make it in playoffs.
Yeah.
So then obviously your off season's shorter or longer.
Yeah.
But how does the season work here? We're chatting about it just briefly.
Yeah.
Like, so when is the season do you play now? And you said, they have a different season to over in the States. Yeah. So obviously, like, how do you match up those games? Yeah, just chat us through that.
Yeah. Again, one of those things where, similar to Matt, even being in schools, but also being in rugby clubs before, you're kind of used to that week-on-week competition, week-on-week game. When you're in season, you're literally like 30 plus weeks of just weekly fixtures. So that's what I was used to coming in. And probably, I guess that's probably the third point that I didn't touch on in your previous question about sort of the differences. I think one thing that I've tried to, or had to sort of become more comfortable with, is we could go some period of time without a fixture, but it's almost seeing that as an opportunity from a physical development perspective to plug some of the gaps or to fill some of the buckets, the physical quality buckets that the guys might need, whether it be strength, power, size, all of the above.
Yeah.
But in terms of the season, how it works. So this season, I'm going to use an example. So we came in literally last day of July for pre-season. We played in August. It was almost like what we call our pre-season fixture in August, which again probably aligns to most UK sports. You have your sort of pre-season in July, August, and then you start your season in September. And again, it's similar to the NFL too in the States. So we played at an American team out in Dublin. Great experience. First time the guys got together and played, so it was a really, really good development opportunity there. We then came back. We then have maybe 3 or 4 weeks of prep before we then have about a month of prep. So we had from the end of August to the end of September, early October before IMG, and then Erasmus. But ultimately our season was September to now.
Okay.
Yeah. So September to now, which again follows NFL quite nicely because they are September to, again, January-ish, and then if you get all the way to the Super Bowl, it's February. What's different from us is that once we're done now for Christmas, we have something called Spring Ball, which is, again, an opportunity for fixtures, mostly internal, but sometimes external fixtures in the springtime. So we literally have from now until sort of March, I think might be mid-March is when we're hoping to have our next game. So you have this almost mini off-season, like you have your first off-season. Yeah. For us in this time, this could be a whole different podcast as well, is that we have our combine, which again, we know is a massive recruiting sort of drive for these guys. So the 40, the L-cone, the shuttle, the bench press, the broad, all that sort of stuff. So that's become almost our focus this off season.
Okay.
They're then going to
do. And you do that here, the combine.
We're going to, yeah. So last year we did it at Derby County. We did it in a professional environment. It's indoor, mostly for keeping the environment as stable as possible.
Yeah.
And then we have that spring football opportunity to play some European teams again in March to April, maybe May. And then again, that's where sort of that second off season begins. So it's like we have 2 seasons. So you have your sort of autumn, winter, and then your spring. And then after the spring, that's when I said before about the guys who go on camp in the summer to the US. And then that's when academics will start to come in. And obviously we have to sort of turn the football dial down a little bit whilst the academic dial turns up. So yeah, I know I've rambled on a bit, but hopefully that gives you a good idea.
That's good because it doesn't just go all the way through from July and then ends in springtime or something. You have kind of 2 mini seasons.
Almost. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask previously before that. You said that you wanted them like fresh, or it's a chance to become like fresh, get into the next season fresh. I'll say fresh once more. But I was wondering, what would you rather them arrive in peak condition, or arrive in a state where they can reach peak condition when you want them to?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think ultimately we want them to come into the pre-season with us in a condition where they're going to be able to tolerate the workload that's going to be placed upon them, especially in that first week.
Yeah.
So how we achieve that, hopefully through off season, is by prescribing them the on-feet loading, the gym-based loading that's going to get them in a position to do that. I would probably say, especially in the pre-season, you have time before your first pre-season fixture. I don't even know if you want to be peaked to your first pre-season fixture, if you know what I mean. You're almost using those pre-season fixtures as a way of peaking, or a way of tweaking, I guess, or refining. So I think that I probably wouldn't say that I would be on end all. I want them to come in their peak condition for day one, because ultimately, once you're at your peak, it's quite hard to maintain it, right? And obviously, the demands increase over the course of the season. Ultimately, people are going to start breaking down and what sort of thing. So I think, I like to come in. I'd like them to come in tolerable to the workload in week one, and then we can almost, because we're now with them, face to face, we can start to control things a little bit more, and we can allow them to progressively reload it and load it, and then hopefully by fixture 1 of the season, as Matt said, then that's when we probably like them to be at their sort of peak, as it were.
So almost like that off season, like Matt said, kind of niggles and then kind of start building that base again, so that when they get back to you, they're in a time, like you said, that they can handle the load that we're going to put on now.
Yeah.
So you don't have to spend 4 weeks just getting them up to that.
Right. Well, in an ideal world.
Kind of in a moldable shape now. We have them in a base, and then we can take them from there. Speaking of what you just mentioned, ideally you're not with them, but obviously you're prescribing them these exercises, and then they go off to who knows where they have who knows what going on or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you keep in contact with them in that time? How do you prescribe exercises? Or I could ask so many questions, but how do you kind of try to make sure that they're coming in back in the condition that you're hoping for?
So last year it was slightly different. We didn't have perhaps the sort of software and the gadgets and the shiny toys to use this year. So now this year we have a software called Team Builder, which again lots of teams now use. Lots of professional teams. It's basically an online software which we can use to program.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're smiling because
because Matt, I always see emails coming from Team Builder. Now I know what it is.
There we go.
It's because the lads use Team Builder, and then I thought, oh crap, I'm already using my email as the admin. So now I thought I might as well move my programs for myself on there. So I use the podcast email.
I always see it come. It's like, what is this? Delete.
Deleting all his progress. Stealing his gains.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. So this year will be quite different, but I think for us, with a large group of guys, so we've got about 60, 65 guys. Last year we had more, 65 to 70. So a lot of boys, like you said, all literally just like spreading out across the globe.
Yeah.
So how you control what they do and get up to is nigh on impossible. But ultimately, I think that one of the key there's a multifactorial way in which you can approach this. So I think for us, firstly, it's when we try and get them all in a room and get them together before they go away. We try to lay out the plan of that off season. But most importantly, and one of my key learnings sort of the last sort of couple of years has been, you've got to anchor it into their why. Like there's no good me saying to them, I need you to do this running and I need you to do this weights. Thanks.
See you in 6 weeks.
It's trying to make it as clear as possible and trying to give them as clear a message that we are doing this for these reasons. It's to make sure that you guys come back ready to dominate camp, ready to dominate the first week. And we're trying to make it almost trying to feed into the sort of the selfish side a little bit in terms of like, this is going to make you number one, your position. This is going to give you the opportunity to get filmed. This is going to give you the opportunity to get noticed by these recruiters. Ultimately, like I'm trying to relate to everything that I'm doing from physical perspective back to why are you here?
Yeah.
And for me, like in the past, that's proven really effective in guys going away with a little bit more intent and a little bit more purpose behind what they're doing. But then when they're actually away, it's a little bit of admin, but I don't mind it. It's a little bit of housekeeping, but it's trying to have those micro like dosages of communication, getting guys. What we try and do is encourage guys to send in film or videos of them doing exercises, more so for us to give feedback on technique or whatever it might be. But also it's sort of sneakily making sure they're doing it, because if they're not doing it, they wouldn't send us any videos, would they? So like,
bro, I just want to check your form. Bro.
Yeah. Well, no, they're legit. We do, but we also want to make sure that they're doing the work. And we also have in the weeks we have like a weekly competition. We'll be setting out some say like off-feet conditioning programs and bike sessions, and we'll get guys to send in some of the metrics from the watt bikes and all that sort of stuff, and get them to compete. I think having an element of competition, especially within our population, these guys are testosterone fueled 16 to 19-year-olds who like want to do nothing more than just to get one over their mates and to be the best. So like they're always going to salivate at competition. So like that's one really, really effective driver for us to make sure that they keep doing the work. So we give out awards, we do all sorts of things to try and window dress it a bit. But now we have Team Builder. It's a lot easier because you can essentially assess completion of the workouts on the website. It's really, really useful. There's also so many different features on there, like the use of a feed, similar like a social media feed you can use to check if people are doing things. And again, we'll probably pair that new technology now with our old methods, which we've found really useful, such as the videos, the competition, the weekly check-ins, that sort of thing. So
when you talk about with Kate, with athletics coach, she was talking about now this year, she's having less like sessions, being at less sessions, that she maybe doesn't need to be at, but spending that time doing more kind of athlete check-ins and like that. And like what you're saying as well in the off season. What's the biggest thing that maybe you've changed this year doing that in the catch-ups that maybe you do now?
Okay.
Did I say this year 2 times? What did you do this year that you wouldn't have done the year before? What did you learn from that first year of off season that this year you like actually reflected on that? I need to change this of how I kind of communicate when you talk about microdosage. Did you do the list? Show me videos, or just those small communication pieces with the athletes? What did you learn from the first year that now you're kind of implementing and maybe changing to make those more effective this year?
Yeah.
That was a struggle.
No. Okay, we got it in the end. It's all good. I think that's a really good question, and I've probably reflecting on it now. I think really simple, but it's just like rather than almost coming in and coming out with almost like I said about that task and relational focus of I'm coming in, I've done your weights, you've got a video, cool, see you later.
Yeah.
That's not me personally. But like, I appreciate that some guys will want me just to do that and not really talk to them about anything else. But some guys, and I've realized this through the relationships I've built with them over the last sort of 18 months, will be wanting to, rather in the off season, rather than me just like being a robot, give me your video, give me your weights, thanks, see you later, and see you next week. It's like actually having a touch in a more holistic sort of, how we've been up to this week, how have you found things? It's trying to eke out the details a bit more of how they found the training, how they've, the issues they're finding, and that sort of stuff. Trying to be a little bit more detailed and a bit more, I guess, rather than being sort of brief, bright, and then being gone, It's more like staying for a little while. If they want me to talk about anything else I'm there.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely helped me attain more information going into then that first day of preseason. Okay, right, I'm aware that these guys were struggling with these bits across the off season, and ultimately that's what I like doing most is to build and maintain the relationship. So
I guess that feeds into like the culture that you're building in there, and if you build a good culture in the off or the season when you're together, then that carries into the off season. Work ethics there. And I guess it's just magnified when people are by themselves and not in the group.
Yeah, and I imagine this is going to probably segue nicely, but like having new players come in. Oh, there we go. Knew it.
It's like he saw.
It's like I knew. It's like I almost knew the questions before they came up. No, when we have new guys come in, it's difficult because you don't have that base or that foundation to then to piggyback off of.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it's a different ball game. But
that was one of the questions, is because obviously your goal, the NFL Academy isn't the end goal.
No.
So it's not the NFL where, hopefully they'll be on that team for a decade.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So it is like preparing them for the next step. So there is this turnover of players, which I'm sure as it goes on will just become more and more and more. And you'll always have new people coming in and people leaving. So how do you deal with that? And is it easier? Is it getting easier as the years go on? I mean, I guess this is only this start of the second year, or I guess you're halfway through the second year.
Yeah.
I suppose. Right?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? Of some are new players that know the culture and get it. Some are old players who know the culture and get it. Some are new players struggling who don't know the culture and are coming from their totally different experiences of whatever they've come from.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Thankfully, it's a team effort to deal with that sort of stuff. But you're right, we have new guys coming in who have been playing football since they were 10, and they're sort of those sort of rare guys within the UK have been playing it at a domestic level for quite some time.
Yeah.
A lot of our guys are actually converts from other sports.
Right. Okay.
Interestingly, so guys who have tried their hand at things like football, rugby, most likely rugby because of there's a bit more of a clear transfer between the physical elements of the game and all that sort of stuff. I think when they're all coming in with different levels of, I guess, knowledge about the game and almost like comfortability within, I think that's even a word, comfortability within like American football culture. Because like we said, it's American culture, it's American sport within the UK. So it has its own sort of nuances and its unique elements to it, right? Like from a holistic perspective, we just try and negate that almost in our considerations. Obviously, we are there first and foremost on day one of preseason to make sure that they're physically going to be in a position where they can tolerate and they're going to be safe and they're going to ultimately they're going to thrive on the field.
Has it been easier this year having returning players and kind of now having a little bit of a culture built of these are the expectations, and having now veteran players who you can kind of be like, hey, you're veteran players now. We expect more of you than we did last year.
Yeah.
In terms of like, you now know the culture that we're trying to build.
Yeah.
Is that easier? Is it harder?
It's difficult because I think when the guys moved house, as it were, up from London to here, they obviously brought with them the culture that had been, I guess, cultivated like in London, which, again, every culture has pros and cons, but it was quite difficult because we were inheriting almost like a program to a new location, and it brought with it some of its own identity, which is obviously more than it's right to do. We found it a challenge to try and implement new things,
right? And
that's, I guess, part and parcel of any sort of new moving organization. So I think now having returning players, which we've been able to work with throughout the year and introduce them to, I guess, the way that we'd like things to go, but also having the support of the great coaches we have this year, or the American guys in particular, but actually all of them, to be fair, all the coaches we have to drive that culture now. It's definitely been easier this year because almost like we're inheriting players who've never been in the NFL Academy before, so therefore they have no experience of what the NFL Academy has been like. So therefore you have, like you said before, a clean slate. Now I can we can sort of feather in the culture of what we want and what us and the coaches would like, and therefore makes our job 100 times easier when we're trying to influence certain things and work with them, basically.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Matt, go ahead.
And then I just wanted to follow on from that sort of reflective sort of theme that we're on now. How would you have programmed the off season differently, like for this upcoming season than you did in the past? Like, what changes would you made? And then, sorry, that would be my second question. But my first question would be, how did you program in the off season?
Matt and I try to formulate questions tonight. Is like that meme where
we're so good at this.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant. Cool. Two-parter. I love these multi questions.
Yeah, and then we just throw 10 questions at Jack.
Yeah, but it's a two-parter. It's a two-parter, but you get the second question first, and then the first question next.
Reverse. I like it. So I think first questions are like, how do we program? Unfortunately, there were sort of, well, in our environment, when you're, I guess it's the same when you're in rugby and football, right? If you're away from the sport and you're in off season, your access to coaching or teammates that actually do sport-specific type conditioning is quite limited. So I guess for us, so like how we laid out the week would be that we would lift on a sort of a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then, so you're kind of getting sort of 36, 40 hours between those sort of stims. And then on a Tuesday, Thursday, we'd have some on-feet stuff. So that would be a combination of your traditional sort of linear speed, high-speed running exposure, which we do for a multitude of reasons, from performance down to reducing risk of injury and making sure that they're, like we said, staying topped up in those qualities that when they come back to us in that day one, we're not sort of cacking ourselves a bit like, okay, these guys haven't had exposure high speed. Now they're going to do a week's worth of like these quite intense preseason drills. Like, oh my God, like what's going to happen? And then on the sort of Thursday, we'd probably do more of like a multi-directional type piece. But what we try and do anyway, is we try to individualize that based on position. So weirdly, like American football is quite especially like if you're talking about the offense, it's quite a pre-planned. You have your routes, you know where you're going, and it's almost like it's a pre-programmed movement. So it's weird. It's like a hybrid of being closed and open. It's almost like a closed reactive. That's probably how I define it. It's a closed reactive type sport, especially if you're like a receiver or whatever. So what we've done is we've tried to implement some of these multi-directional type conditioning drills, which are a little bit more specific to the main movement patterns of each position, whether that be backpedaling to hip flipping for like a DB. It might be some routes of different angles and severities for receivers. It will be some offensive line, defensive line type drills too. And then on the Saturday, then we'd have maybe some off-feet conditioning stuff. And then Sunday would obviously the rest of Saturday and Sunday rest. So that was part one. That was two. So two that was one was how I would change it, correct?
That's right, I think,
yeah. I was just going to follow on from something you said though. So like one thing you said was the multi sort of directional movements, and I was just hoping to clarify something. So like a way to progress that. So obviously you say they come into the season, into the preseason, you get that going through. Obviously, say a wide receiver, an attacking player, they know their routes, right? The way you'd progress it over the weeks is you'd get them obviously learning how to cut at those different angles. Then, as you said, it's more reactive after that, because once they've caught it, there's no route anymore. They got to figure out where to go. So would you say after week 2 or week 3, however, what time span you want to use, would you then bring in some more reactive drills?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think the one barrier we had without using, and again, we could get into some real weeds here, without using or having access to, say, a partner or a training partner, someone to react off of.
Right, yeah. You're trying to react off of yourself. Oh!
Yeah. So, like, it was... Yeah,
got a mirror.
Exactly. Yeah. Do it in your lounge or something, whatever. So that obviously was so I guess like a roadblock or a barrier for that. I guess other solutions that we have played around with before would be things like if they have equipment, cones and things, and it's ultimately for it to be reactive, there has to be a stimulus that you then have to observe, decide what you're going to do, and then act on it.
Right.
So for us, at least in our, and this probably could be a reflection point of how could we maybe introduce that next year. But this year, we will probably hang our hat more so on the physical capacity component of that, and actually exposure to high intensity decelerations, change direction, that sort of stuff from a tissue specific level, I guess, and just making sure that their tolerance to those things are increasing.
Right. And that's the mold that you get them with now, and then we can work on reacting.
I guess so. Yeah, and then ultimately, like, I'm not the expert in American football. The technical coaches are the experts, and as much as I've tried to learn from them, ultimately, it's going to be those guys, like you said, in the actual preseason phase that are going to start to develop some of the more, the technical specific and tactical specific elements.
Right.
I hope that answers it. Yeah.
That answers the follow-up question, but you still got the second question. So you're saying
that was part 1B?
That was part 1B. Part 1B, which was actually 2B.
Okay, fine.
What was the other one? What you would change, right?
The other one was, the difference between last year to this year.
That's a good question, I think this year upcoming, based on having more staff members amongst us, initially, between the 70 guys, it was me and one other practitioner for a bit of time. We then had placements supporting, but obviously in the early times, those placements aren't perhaps at a level of skill where they can program right away, which is, again, that's all part of the development journey and stuff. So until that point, it was obviously quite a stretch between the two of us trying to do that together. So I think in hindsight to the previous off-season, following on to this coming off-season, what we'd like to do would be to, rather than, I guess, give them a general conditioning type program, which is going to bring them back at a decent level, it's like, how can we actually optimize that even further?
Okay.
There's a way that we can, we're going to like perhaps bucket athletes more specifically into the primary physical quality they're going to need. Right. So whether it's a size, so if guys are going to be in the size bucket based on some of the diagnostic data we've carried out on them in that year, based on IDT discussions with nutrition and physio and all that sort of stuff. Are there guys that we need to lean more towards mass? Are there guys that need to lean more towards power, strength, or the guys who are hybrid who need all the above? Of course, nothing's ever trained in isolation. We kind of use more of a conjugate approach where we're, again, using the dial sort of analogy, all dials are being used, but ultimately there's one dial that's going to be turned further up than the others based on the primary needs. So I think now having the space and sort of capacity to do that will be a thing that we can.
And I guess, like you said, a whole year of working with those athletes, so now you actually know what they need.
Exactly.
Because you've seen them.
100%.
Yeah. Matt, go ahead.
Okay, so I think there was a couple of things, but one thing you said about all the dials turned up. So we recently spoke to Julian, who is in the army, works as a physical trainer over there, and he said, like, in the army, you can't just be the strongest and then you can barely run with your pack for like countless miles. So as you said, all those dials, he agreed. He said, like, we need all those dials, but we need them all firing at the same time. So we're trying to do that in like a certain amount of time in training. So it was just something bringing back from a past episode. And then the other thing I was going to ask was, damn it, I should have written this down.
No.
Oh, no, I remember. The other thing I was going to say was, when you mentioned like through the years, you go through, as the years go by, when you're programming and trying to get more specialized, you actually create a backlog of programs that next time you encounter something and you're like, oh, actually, I've got a program for this. Oh, actually, I could work with this. So you'll have like, over the years go by with this program that you're building up, it will be amazing to see like the countless different programs or skills you've learned from that. Because I mean, when I was over in New Zealand, which I barely mentioned,
see the Highlanders.
That's right.
No, it's a great.
Sorry,
sorry, my bad, Chiefs. My dad will be so disappointed. He's a massive Chiefs fan. So,
Is it? Oh, it was. Yeah, but they did the exact same thing. So like, almost split them into groups from the, as you said, the diagnostic or physical profile test they did in the beginning, and you'll get some boys. I remember in Australian rugby, they used to, back in the day, back when the PC wasn't too bad, they used to call it the Fat Club. They get like the boys in the Fat Club. But like over in New Zealand, like you'd see some boys working on more power. So the forwards would be like doing, I can't give an example now, but they would be doing a lot of power. The backs would be looking at, so say sled marches, the forwards would be doing heavier sled marches, backs would be doing quicker ones. But then you'd have some boys doing some metabolic conditioning. So they'd be powering through reps of various like almost a circuit. So you do. It's interesting to see it also in
and then you
the
get
NFL.
Me just doing calves.
Don't worry, it wasn't a follow-up question.
Then you get me just hand.
Oh, David, I'd give up. I'd give up now. I'd give up. That train has sailed.
The calves train.
That ship has sailed.
You can tell it's half 9 at night.
Yeah, right? We need to wrap this up quickly. I have one more question.
More question,
and then Matt, do we have quick fire questions today?
Oh yeah, 20. But they all start in non-chronological order. Only 5.
Okay,
only
I have
5.
one more question to wrap things up, and then we have quick fire questions.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm getting tangled. There we go. We're good. And it's a two-parter because we love double parts here.
Just get my notebook out. Make sure I don't forget.
First one is, what's the biggest thing that you want to improve this year as an S&C coach? And what's the next step in your kind of career development? Like, where do you want to go?
Yeah.
What's that next step?
Okay, so part 1 was like,
what's the biggest thing you want to improve?
Yeah, that's a good.
And then what's the next step where you want to go?
I think from where I'd like to develop, one of the things. So, speaking of off seasons, I think off seasons are a great opportunity to reflect not only on the program but also on ourselves. So, I've used some pretty cool resources that I've kindly been given by the people that I've sort of tried to morph into my environment. Things like anonymous player feedback forms, things that I can use to try and get a bit of a lay of the land of like, where do they think I need to improve? I think based on some reflections, I guess, of last season, but also going forward, it's just always, and we do this really well as an NFL sort of performance support team, but it's always continuing to try and drive that almost that cross-pollination between disciplines. Ultimately, no athlete, any intervention that's placed that we put with an athlete is not by any means under the umbrella of one discipline, i.e. S&C or physio or nutrition. It's got to be a collective effort. So I think, again, coming into this role, working in a school, you probably don't quite get that exposure. I guess you do. Matt, you obviously would be able to speak on it more sort of knowingly now, but I guess in a school environment with so many kids, so many pupils, like you still obviously have perhaps nutritionists or you might have physios, but it's sometimes quite siloed in terms of how they operate. But one thing I've learned being here is that to truly be effective as a team and to, again, put the player in the best position to go and to achieve what they want to do, you've got to be connected, and you've got to be connected throughout the entire thing. So that's been a cool sort of development journey for me. And I think it's probably one thing that I want to continue trying to develop and continue to try and really be proactive with, try to drive that cross-pollination, but also just be a part of it. And then, cool. I should have my notebook out. I said that.
We none of us can remember.
Oh, I was going to say. See, I was going to say, you don't have to worry about forgetting it. We'll forget it before we even ask you it. So we'll be like, wait, we had something to ask you.
Absolute space cadets. The last one was, what's next? Like what?
Oh, okay. Right, cool.
Career development is in NFL beyond.
Yeah. I think for me, like, I'm still relatively quite early on. Like, this is probably my 4th, maybe 5th year within the industry. So that's, you compare it to other industries, teachers of 30 plus years and so that sort of thing you hear. But I haven't been, S&C coach for that long. So still very much lots to learn and to get better at, and by no means perfect. But I think for me going forward, I think some of the goals I'd like to achieve would be perhaps to try and work abroad, try and get into, I think one of the beauty, and obviously Matt's obviously experienced that. I think one of the beautiful things about this industry and sports science in general is that it can take you to all over the world.
Right.
Like, sport is a universal thing. Like, every country around the world, they have sports teams, they have opportunities. And I think that's probably one thing that, especially at my age, I say I might look at 86, but I'm actually in my mid-20s, that I want to go and seize.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one thing on my bucket list, is to experience different cultures and different ways of working sport, which is kind of weird because I've actually been able to experience that here working with American sport.
Yeah.
I think I'd love to get into like a leadership position one day, in terms of similar to my boss now, like trying to get into sort of a head of performance role would be a really good opportunity to try and strive for. I've always had this weird sense of like, I could see myself getting into academia maybe one day, like maybe like it's almost like you have your years in the trenches, as it were, in terms of being an S&C coach, and then trying to, I think I also get quite a big kick of trying to mentor or upskill other people. So if there are opportunities maybe later down the line when I've had my time in pro sport and or sports in general, and it's an opportunity to actually upskill and pass that on to the next generation of coaches, as it were, like that would be really cool. That's something that it's early doors, right? And that's like plan A version 1.0, but like
B2.
Exactly. But it's one of those things that I've thought about, and I feel like it probably aligns to some of the needs and wants and sort of the nature of who I am, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, going abroad, sort of trying to climb that ladder, who knows? I could be finishing my working career in an office as nice as this.
Yeah.
I feel like I've stepped into Harvard. Nice. I've stepped into a portal. Yeah. You should have said it.
Nah, come on. Tottenham Hotspur to that library in the background, no chance.
Yeah, fair enough. Right. Good point.
No chance. I was going to say, that's the beauty of the industry we work in, because, I've wanted to think being a physical trainer in the army, that would be quite cool. Working in a school, that's quite cool. But, I think main thing, traveling abroad, I had a thought process, which is still going, of going to America, getting through maybe football via MLR, so Major League Rugby, work for a team there, then, go placement somewhere in a college football program or somewhere, and then go there. But it's a fun little industry we work in. It's tough through the unpaid placements, but it's quite rewarding.
I was going to say, for 86, you're looking pretty good. I've been trying to dodge his triceps the whole entire podcast.
I'm going to clip that bit, and that's the only bit that I'm going to put on my... No, I'm joking.
Yeah, exactly.
Make sure that's on the preview.
It's great.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No. Well, we really appreciate you coming on, especially starting at 8. We ran over. It's almost 9. Well, it is 9:30. Almost 10. 9:35. So we really appreciate it.
Worries.
It's been great.
Yeah.
It's been awesome. Yeah. Just
thank you so much.
Because we've chatted before a bit, but never this long.
No,
so
and as it is flown by, and it does not feel like half night. I've really enjoyed being on. And I was going to say, I said to you before we went on, like the discipline it takes for you guys to do this week on week, and the commitment it shows that you guys are producing quality content is awesome. And it's something that I admire, because everyone's like, I could do a podcast, I could do this, it'd be easy. And then you get maybe 2 weeks in, and you realize all the organization it takes, and the editing, and the social media, and you've got a PhD to do.
You can't formulate a question.
Right. Well, no.
Hey, David, that's a skill. That's a skill to get that wrong.
Get it wrong is a skill, and we've got it.
But ultimately, massive thanks for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, it's been really great. Yeah. So we got quick fire questions with Matt.
Go for it.
Matt, take it away.
Sorry.
Unless you have something else before.
Sorry, I just realised something. This podcast actually has one PhD, so technically I've got a PhD. So
shared, is it? Shared custody.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I like that. He has it on weekends.
Yeah.
Matt has it on weekends.
It's like asterisk next to my name and Matt Cowley.
Yeah.
I'm definitely the type of guy just walks in with a lab coat. I'm PhD for this weekend, all right? Everyone listen to me. But no, so quick 5 questions. Ready? What NFL team do you support?
I don't know if I'm not ashamed to say, actually. I'm going to be really proud about this. I support the Carolina Panthers, who are currently the only team, team to be officially ruled out of the playoffs with a 1-12 record.
No.
We traded away all our
Cowboys.
Are you going? All right, we traded all our draft capital away to get number 1 pick.
Okay, so they're tanking for a reason.
But we just haven't got. It just doesn't seem that we have especially the O-line right now to give him the time to find. And also the receivers aren't doing great to get into space either.
How many years of good drafting do they need before they're good?
I have no idea, but anything based on, obviously the Bengals went from being pretty trash for a number of years to obviously getting Joe Burrow, and then I think maybe it was 1 or 2, maybe 3 years, and then they made it to the Super Bowl. So hey, I'm going to be the one smirking at the end and laughing when it eventually happens. I'm holding out hope.
The Super Bowl
when we're 12-1 this time next year, you guys will be.
By the time that happens, he'll be working with the Panthers. So 20 years down the line, I thought it would change.
100%.
Next one. What were you afraid of as a child?
That's a good one. I haven't heard of that one yet.
Sorry, I saw another one online that was, what was your favourite type of stationery, which made me crack up. But yeah, we'll stick with this
lots
one.
of things freaked me out as a kid. Oh, God.
The fact my triceps never stopped growing.
Oh, no. What a curse. I don't, honestly, so many things. I was such a scared little kid. I'm probably going to say, I distinctly remember having a very big freak out as a kid at a circus. There was a big inflatable clown. And I was beside myself. So I think that probably
inconsolable.
That created maybe slight fear towards that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I like to say I've grown out of it now, just for those guys and girls listening. I have grown out of that fear now. But as a kid, clowns were.
That's reasonable.
Nice. What is one of your nicknames? Or what is your nickname?
Again, not really anything special. I think people like nowadays just put the first letter of your first name and then put it with your last name.
Milk?
No, oat milk. No, I've not had that one.
Oh, I've got a great one. What's that band called? Hall & Oates? You could call it Guns N' Oates or something like that.
Oates. Yeah, people. Yeah, no. You know what? I'm going to take those. I'm going to try them out tomorrow.
Float them out.
Oat milk.
See if they stick. Get back to us.
He's walking through the gym, just going, "I'd hate if someone called me
really
this."
loudly 3 times in a row. Oh, don't, guys. Stop.
David, when we're in the gym later, just shout this name at me and I'll turn.
No, just I don't have any nicknames, so I don't know if that makes me really boring. But
do people call you, like, what do they call you in the gym? Sir?
No, again, that's another thing I used to do, getting called Coach.
Oh, they call you Coach?
Yeah, like proper American style. Yeah. So rather than it being, because I've always worked on Jack, like that's again.
But it was always first name, not last name.
Yeah, no, it's always first name, if not but a Coach. But yeah, like Joten is probably one that's probably stuck a lot with friends at home. It's literally the most creative one, isn't it? It's just J Oaten, Joten. So that's probably
that sounds American, to be fair. One subject you'd like to learn more about?
Oh, okay, yeah.
This next question is going to get deep as well, so get ready.
Subject. You mean like a specific topic, or you mean like a global, like discipline, like a thing, like anything?
You choose anything.
Yeah, anything.
You know what?
So David's would be like supplements to grow calves or something like that.
That's great. You know? I'd probably do the same, to be honest. I'd like to say that I'm also rocking my Crocs.
with an NFL
with the NFL gibbets on it.
On there as well.
But basically, I'm business all the way down, and it takes a very hard, firm stop at my feet, and it's just party Crocs.
They're even sport mode Crocs.
They're sport mode on, yeah.
Sport mode on.
So I think one subject, what I want to learn more about? Jesus, brother. I probably like the body kind of freaks me out, but also fascinates me in the same breath. So it kind of probably weirdly suits my job as well. But like, I want to learn more about just general, like the body, just like in and out. Just I think like more anatomy based stuff would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because we we work through it and all that sort of stuff, but like actually diving deep into this sort of stuff. And I always get like really fascinated about how clever the body is. And there's almost sometimes too clever for its own good, hence why you get ill and stuff. But like just learning more about how the body
like muscle
but
memory.
all of it stuff, like just the body or the brain and the human body is just like incredibly cool.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like I know enough about it. So that's probably one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And then finally, what quote resonates with you?
Oh my God.
Or what quote do you use a lot of the time?
So one I like the most was, who said it to me? It might have been my mum, you know. Again, you have your ups and downs and both professional, personal, sort of stuff. But she quoted, I think it was, smooth seas never made a skilled sailor.
It's classic. I think my mom has like a magnet on the fridge of that. I'm sure of it at home.
And I'd like to hope no one of the guests has said that. Are these questions different for every guest, by the way?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
And they range. It's incredible what Matt comes
Yeah. I like that. So I think that's quite nice. I have almost like a notes on my phone with different quotes and things that I've seen around and that resonate with me. But I think that one's quite nice. It's not always going to be perfect. And ultimately, like, to get better at something, you're going to have to fail and you're going to have to lose out and just got to go with the flow and learn how to use the sails. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on. Obviously, hope for the best of luck this year and the off season.
Thanks.
And it's really be exciting to see where it goes in the next couple of years and what happens with you and where you head off to.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'll have to do it in a couple of years or whenever I come back on and help update part 2.
Yeah.
Part 2B.
Yeah, well, we always tell guests because we haven't been able to do it, but we want to do like YouTube videos and stuff. So if we can get Matt up here, and you'll have to run us through maybe some on-field stuff or something.
Yeah,
we'll get the pads out.
Oh yeah, that I would like.
You'll just see a clip of a 16-year-old dropping me.
The thing is that the size of the 16-year-olds we have,
Can anyone bench more than you?
Oh, 100%. We have a guy who's benching 180 easy, maybe 185. He's squatting 260. He's 17 actually, maybe.
What an animal!
So
At least he's 18. He's just turned 14. Hasn't even hit puberty yet.
Yeah, exactly. But no, so 100%.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate it, Matt.
Awesome.
Do you have anything else? Sorry.
Oh, nothing of substance, just something stupid. But carry on.
No, we were just saying thanks again, and I really look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, ideal. Thanks, guys.